I think that's going to take us live right now. I think we will be live. Wait a couple of seconds and see. Yep, alrighty. I'm seeing it here. Awesome. Cool. So today we're going to be discussing the Black Dahlia. And the Black Dahlia is really a fascinating case because it happened local. Um, alrighty. Alrighty, I think we are back. Minor issues. No worries. No problems. So today we have the Black Dahlia that we're going to be discussing, and we're actually not really going to be discussing it because we're going to be watching it live on my channel. We filmed the episode yesterday, Rich and I, and it was truly a interesting episode because, well, I'm related to a direct relative of the Black Dahlia. We're not related. I'm dating a direct relative of the Black Dahlia, Elizabeth Short. We'll just actually make sure that we're actually good here. Yeah. All right. Cool. Yep. We're good here. Awesome. So it turns out, and you guys are going to hear in the episode that my girlfriend right now is her grandmother actually knew the Black Dahlia very well, vacations together, um, and it was her second cousin. So over this past 4th of July weekend, I had the opportunity to sit down and hear about her history with the Black Dahlia, Elizabeth Short, hearing her, you know, her stories, what their relationship was like, and it brought a little bit more of a personal touch to the episode. It really is a fascinating case. There are countless reasons as to why. One of the things that really struck me weird about the case was that the father figure who disappeared for 12 plus years just shows up again. To me, that's like very strange, very odd. Just doing some stream management. Don't mind me. Yeah. All right. Cool. Yeah, we are definitely good to go. We are running. Yeah. So we got about 7 minutes left until the show starts. I'm going to be playing it live on here to tie in exactly with the live YouTube release. I'm anticipating that this video will do pretty well considering the nature of the episode that we're discussing. I'm really starting to think about taking the true crime aspect of this show. I think the true crime really is what is going to propel the show forward. So I'm pretty excited. Rich and I discussed yesterday off camera and a little bit on camera too, about possibly doing H.H. Holmes. So we'll see how that one goes. But H.H. Holmes is another interesting case. It happened a bit earlier, and that happened around 1890. I want to say 18 something, late 1800s, very early 1900s. I want to say that was happening. I've done very little research on the actual case itself, so I'd have to obviously refresh. But no, it would be really interesting to check it out. Um, what do we got left for time here? We got about 6 minutes. I'm gonna take a sip of my coffee. Bit of a different place today. Bit of a different place. We're outside of my patio. Usually we're inside, but I figured it's a beautiful day outside today. We might as well do this outside. Usually sit out here. I try to sit out here in the morning sometimes, relax, enjoy the weather. This area doesn't really get as much sun in the morning. The front gets the sun, so this place is shaded. So if I ever want to do podcasts out here, it's a great spot to do it. But during the daytime, like anytime afternoon, gets bombarded with the sunlight. That's why we got the umbrellas. Yeah. What we got? What we got going on? Got anyone in here? We got some people in here. That's cool. Awesome. Yeah, so we're gonna be really diving into this episode, and I'm thinking about doing a coffee hour afterwards. Maybe not today. Maybe at some point a little bit later, to discuss it because Rich and I didn't dive as much into the case. We did a little bit of a shorter episode. No problems with that. I think it's a bit easier for everybody to watch if that's the case. But yeah, so I think I'm going to do a coffee hour to really dive into the suspects. It'd be kind of a format just like this. I guess you could consider this a coffee hour, but this is more a watch hour. So some quick background on the case before we start, because we got about 3 minutes left until we start here. Elizabeth Short, aka the Black Dahlia, was born July 29th, 1924 in Boston. She was raised in California. She ended up going out to California. I want to say about 17. She went out to California, I think it was, to chase like an acting career. And really, to be honest with you, what really kicked off the California expedition for her was she had like a lung surgery when she was young, very young. And that lung surgery, basically the doctors told her like, yo, you gotta go to a warmer climate. It's too horrible in Massachusetts. Got to go to a nicer climate because like in summer times here it gets hot, hot, hot. But there's like a difference between the desert heat. Are we frozen? No, we're not frozen. We're good. There's a difference between the desert heat and the humidity. And Massachusetts really gets the humidity. So I think she was trying to escape the humidity and go into California where it's a bit warmer outside. I don't blame her. It sucks here. I'd move if I could in a heartbeat. So yeah, this episode runs about 44 minutes, and we're going to discuss everything about the case, the specifics. We don't really dive into all the suspects. I have 4 primary suspects that I suspect of committing the crime, but we'll find out very soon. During my coffee hour, you guys will find out really what my opinion is, because it's very interesting, because every single one of them could have done it. So it's like you can't really. I mean, I might sway one way over the other, but you don't really know. And it really is. Yeah, it threw me through a loop when I was watching documentaries and stuff like that and prepping for this show. This yesterday's show that we shot that we're going to be airing in a few minutes. When I was prepping for this show, I was watching documentaries and I was like, "What is going on here?" Like, because it seems crazy. This girl just disappeared for like 6 days. But I mean, that's the 40s California for you, I guess. Yeah. Alrighty, I want to be on time here. What are we looking at? What are we looking at? The time. Well, we got 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Yep. Premieres in 60 seconds, actually, is what my laptop is telling me. So I'm going to be cutting over. I'll be in the corner. You guys can hang out with me. Check it out. We got some people in the waiting room for this. Not sure how this video is doing, but we're gonna have some fun here. We're gonna enjoy it. Once this video premieres, I'll start the live stream. New breakthrough. A family member of the Black Dahlia speaks out. Caroline's grandmother. And I got a direct quote from her. Stay tuned. It's about halfway through the episode, and then we go into theories after, which you're definitely not going to want to miss. Episode will begin shortly. I'm going to time it for you guys perfect with this one, so I'm just kind of waiting on this. Just waiting on this. What do we got? My watch says we got about 50 seconds. Now, I'm not sure how clear that is with Apple, but we're gonna run it. We're gonna run it. And how are we doing on this stream here? Like our stream? Us hanging out together. Let's find out. YouTube. Where's the Black Dahlia? Any minute now, guys. We're gonna be running this. Any minute now. So So if you got your comments, throw them in right now so I can check them out before we start the stream. Okay, all right. Looks like we're gonna be getting ready to go soon. 9:30. Waiting on. Yep. All right, here we go. Give me 1 second to mute my audio. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Seth Mazuski podcast. Today in the house, I have Rich with me. Rich, good to see you.
Hey there, good to be back, Seth.
Yes, it is. And today we're going to be discussing a case that's very important. It's an oldie, but it's very relevant. And the reason it's relevant is because we're discussing the Black Dahlia. And the Black Dahlia, Elizabeth Short, is related to my girlfriend. Yes. So my girlfriend's grandmother is second cousins with the Black Dahlia. So we have a unique approach and quotes from the family that discuss the Black Dahlia's case. And before we get into the quotes and what the family believes, happened and their experience with all this, I think that we should just kind of dive on into it and take a look at it. Oh, and what I'm going to be drinking today is I'm going to be drinking the 6-bean blend. And I'm really excited. This coffee is getting a lot of traction, and I think it's doing pretty well. So if you want, sit down, grab a coffee, enjoy it with us. And as we dive into these crazy cases, the Black Dahlia. So where do we start? Do we want to start with?
I guess we start with where Elizabeth Short, where she came from.
Right.
So, and the reason we are picked up on this is because she's local. She's from the Boston area, born in Boston. Her listed place of birth was Hyde Park. Hyde Park is one of the many, many stories of parts of Boston. I guess there's 7 or 8 parts of Boston, including Dorchester, where I used to work, and Roxbury and Roslindale and Alston and Brighton and
Right.
Charlestown and Eastie and Southie, better known as South Boston, but we're locals. We call it Eastie,
Yeah.
East Boston, and Southie, South Boston.
So she was from Medford, right?
Well, she was born in Boston, according to her birth certificate, and then later on, her family moved several places, Portland, Maine, and finally settled in Medford, Mass, where she attended school. And we only have records up to her sophomore year, which would have been grade 10. She was ill as a child, had asthma. The doctor recommended that she spend maybe part of the year in warmer climates, so she did live in Florida, stayed with somebody in Florida during the winter times for several years, and then came back. And she did attend high school, both freshman and sophomore year, at Medford High.
Yeah.
And like so many people of that era, she was born in the 20s, and schooling didn't have the emphasis that it had today. And she, like so many students, dropped out, and right around the same time, rediscovered that her father, who they assumed was deceased, suddenly let the family know that he was alive and lived in California.
Do we want to dive into how the father's disappearance? Because that's a little bit of a tale on its own.
Yeah.
He had disappeared for 12 years.
Yes.
And
the family assumed that he was deceased.
right.
There were indications to think that maybe he had taken his own life.
Right.
And 12 years later, lo and behold, he sends the family information that he's alive. He's working at a shipyard in California. And right around that same time, Elizabeth decided to go to California and join her father.
She had went to California to chase movies, any type of acting gigs.
That was her dream, but she initially went out there because her father was there. and that didn't work out. You know, she hadn't seen him since she was 6 years old, and now here she is, a teenager, young adolescent, and one thing led to another, and she left that situation, and no longer was at her father's, and was basically out on her own. And the reason we know she was out on her own because she was arrested when she was 18 years old. This is 1943 during World War II for underage drinking.
Right.
This is kind of an important thing because she was booked, and I sent you the files on those pictures if you want to add those. She was booked, photographed, and fingerprinted, and those fingerprints were instrumental in identifying her at the time of her demise at age 22.
Yeah, unfortunately. Do we want to discuss, actually more, I have a question. Do you think that the issues she had with her father, basically daddy issues with her dad, caused her or gave her some type of momentum for going with many different guys, dating different guys all the time, looking for new places to stay because she was having trouble paying her bills? Do you think that had a part to do with it, or do you think she was just doing it out of survival?
I think it's probably a survival mode because she had moved in her early years, so it was not unaccustomed for her to move around. She had moved back and forth to Florida several years because of health issues, and then moved out to California. And I don't think she had that family attachment. She was the middle sister. There were 5 girls in the family, and she was the middle one. We don't know too much about the family. Do know that she had an older sister who was 2 years older. Her name was Dorothea. And during World War II, from the reports that I have garnered, that she translated Japanese letters that were in Japanese for the government.
That's crazy.
So basically worked for an organization which was looking at people's mail and finding out what was said. And to be able to do that, she had to understand, read, and probably speak Japanese.
Right.
And this would have been Elizabeth's next oldest sister, 2 years older. And I don't think Elizabeth had she wasn't dedicated to being around her immediate family and did not mind moving and did that. And I think it's probably as a method of survival rather than anything to do with her father. She was only lived with her father for a short while after she rediscovered that he was still alive.
I'd heard that it was about a year.
Right.
And 12 years after 12 years after his disappearance, she was notified. Do we want to go into, or do you want to go into what her social life and her social circles looked like when she had moved out of her father's house? You had mentioned the underage drinking. I know that she frequented bars and different nightclubs trying to meet people to get into the entertainment
Yes, and
industry.
she also worked at a lot of those places too,
Right.
as a waitress, and that was a method of survival.
Yeah.
She had aspirations to be a movie actress. The photographs, some of the photographs which I sent to you in the file and which we have here today, were publicity photographs that she had taken by a professional photographer. I looked everywhere I could, and I never found any indication that she was ever in any theatrical performances or movies or anything else like that. But that was her goal, to get into the movies and be an actress.
Right. Right.
And like so many people that did that, both male and female, at that particular time, you could do that.
Yeah.
These days, to be an actor or an actress, most people pursue the route of going to some type of formal education for that, either an acting school or School for Performing Arts, something like that. Where back then, in the 40s, 50s, people went to Hollywood because that's where the action was and tried to get discovered.
Yeah.
And she was in social circles where she tried to be discovered. There's a rumor that she was at the Hollywood Canteen a lot, which is a place out there where a lot of notoriety and actors and actresses and producers and directors kind of hung out. There's a rumor that she even worked there for a while, but I couldn't document that.
Right.
But that was one of the places where she was trying to gain notoriety, and with the event that happened, she succeeded.
Yeah. So she's nicknamed the Black Dahlia. A lot of people, and I believe it's true, named after the Blue Dahlia.
The movie.
And the Black Dahlia, the black, was taken from her hair color and her color of choice for clothing. Do you feel the black outfit or anything like that had any type of like meaning, or do you think it was just like this doesn't stain and it's cheap to keep?
No, I think that was her signature.
Yeah, you think so?
That signature look.
Like pale red lipstick and black.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Black Dahlia tag that she was called, that's a fabrication of the newspaper.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think it came from that movie, The Blue Dahlia, which came out 2 years earlier. And the name has stuck. There is also, and there's some pictures to prove this, that she wore flowers in her hair. That was something that people did back then.
Right.
You and I don't do that anymore. But
Caroline should. I love Caroline start wearing flowers in her hair.
That's the nickname that the newspapers. The newspapers did a terrible job on meddling into this case early.
Right.
They were there almost as quick as the police. The gruesome pictures that were taken of the crime scene, of her on the side of the road being dismembered, were taken by a member of the press, not by the police. And those were quickly on print.
Yeah.
And people were scooping up the story, and everybody was running with it.
Do we want to go into what happened, the story of the 6 nights that she was unaccounted for, what we think may have happened, or what the police...
I don't know that we can do that. There's probably a half a dozen main suspects in this case.
Right.
And to go down that road, we would have to figure out how they interacted with her on those days that she was missing. Now, my notes that I have say that she went missing on the 9th, January 9th, 1947, and
Yep.
and her body was discovered
On the
6 days later.
Yeah.
And we're assuming that she probably might have been killed the day before her body was discovered.
Do we want to discuss what the crime scene looked like? Just so that the audience, if they don't know what the Black Dahlia is,
Sure.
they can understand what the picture is, and then maybe what the police may have think happened. And then we can... I got a couple of suspects that I think are worth mentioning, but we can get down that road when we get to that part. But I think just kind of painting a picture of what the scene looked like.
Okay, Los Angeles at that time, because of everything that was going on, people coming back from the service after World War II, a lot of industry out there. A lot of industry developed in California during World War II because of the weather, and manufacturing took place. There were jobs out there, and there was a big expansion in the Los Angeles area, big expansion of business, big expansion of homes, and where the remains of Elizabeth Short were found was in a development, which is going to be houses, but there weren't any houses. The roads were all laid out. The sidewalks were all laid out. It was like vacant land, but was getting prepared for building. And on the morning, I think it was the 15th of January, a woman was walking with her child. I'm not sure if it was in a carriage or was just walking with a child. And she saw on the side of the sidewalk what she thought was a mannequin,
Yep.
a store mannequin. And it was broken up, as mannequins can come parts for posing purposes. And as she got closer, she realized that it was not a mannequin, that it was indeed somebody who was deceased and had been mutilated. And she immediately called the police. And the police arrived, the press arrived. I don't think she called the press first, like the Borden case that we talked about,
Yeah.
where Mr. Cunningham, the first people he called was the press before he called the police. But the police and the press all arrived at the same time, and she was not in a neighborhood. There was no houses.
Right.
It was just vacant, undeveloped land,
Open road.
which the streets were there. The streets were all laid out. The sidewalks were all laid out, and they were in the process of building houses as the city of Los Angeles expanded.
Right.
So that was the crime scene. That's not where the crime occurred.
Right.
And the reason we can say that is because there was very little blood there.
Yeah, it's kind of like, so not kind of like, it's true that she didn't have any blood in her. It was because there wasn't a puddle of it. It was kind of, with all due respect, drained prior.
And then the body was moved there.
And then the body was transported. So, yeah.
The body was clean.
Yeah, it was scrubbed.
Right. To remove any
Yep.
fingerprints or anything like that.
I had heard it was probably scrubbed 2 or 3 times to make sure that it was like prepped for essentially like a funeral, sort of.
Right.
Like they followed the same type of embalming techniques.
Right.
But so looking at Elizabeth's body, as far as signs of trauma, they saw, I think, lacerations from rope burn on the wrists.
Yeah, ligature, and a little bit of bruising, but total mutilation. And that total mutilation, they suspected that it had been somebody with a medical background.
Yes, due to the cut that was performed.
Right, and there's a name for that.
I forget the cut. Yeah.
And there was a medical school in the area, and they investigated.
Hemicorpectomy. Oh my God, how do you pronounce that? I have it in my notes.
Okay, I would pronounce it hemicoronectomy.
There we go. I am not a doctor. I'm just a podcaster.
Which is a specific horizontal cut across the body.
Yes, and it went through
in the
spine.
in the lower back area between the vertebrae, a certain number of vertebrae, and that's how the body was found, and the body was posed.
Yes, it was posed.
It was just
kind of
not
like,
thrown on the side of the road. The body was posed.
It was posed like a theater, like a performance.
Yes,
and which is kind of crazy. Yeah.
So that's how the body was found, and as I was saying, there was a medical school in the area of where the body was found, and they investigated that particular aspect. They got the names of the attendees for that were in surgical training at that medical school and traced that down.
I heard that there were, at that time in Los Angeles, that there were 50 people that about 50 people that had the knowledge to make that specific cut.
Right.
And so they looked at everybody who had that proper schooling.
Right. And over time, they narrowed the suspects down.
Yeah.
As I told you before, there were 60 people who admitted that they did it.
Right.
None of them were.
Trained.
And they came down to a handful of possible suspects. And the LAPD was under heavy scrutiny at that time for corruption and other things. And in the year before Elizabeth Short's demise and a year afterwards, there were approximately 13 young women who were killed in the LA area.
Yeah.
And under suspicious circumstances.
This is a very popular time for this type of criminal acts.
Right.
Especially LA, Chicago, H.H. Holmes, who we texted about.
Right.
There's a lot that was going on in this time period.
Right. Well, H.H. Holmes was it was Lizzie Borden era, 1893, 94.
Oh, right. Yeah, this was early. I thought that was
So
a bit later.
This was 60 years later.
Right. My apologies.
But there were a lot of unsolved and a lot of solved crimes that occurred, crimes against women. And the LAPD was under really heavy scrutiny because of that. Politicians were saying, what is going on? And they were hot on the trail of many possible candidates. And one of them was, and it's in the notes, was a doctor who was somebody.
George Hodel.
Right.
Dr. George Hodel.
George Hodel. And he was a doctor for the stars.
Yeah.
He was involved with Hollywood producers, Hollywood directors, actors, and he was involved in them as in a circle of friends. And he would take care of things when somebody needed some type of medical procedure that you couldn't go in to your local clinic and have it taken care of.
Right.
And he would do that. And they suspected him. And the reason they suspected him because there were some criminal charges brought against him by his daughter.
Yes.
And there was also a missing secretary that worked for him for a few years. And she was suddenly gone.
So the criminal charges that were brought against George were of SA to his daughter.
Right.
And to be transparent, from what I did from my research, there were no signs of SA on Elizabeth Short. It looked more just like something that started consensual, and then it was basically like a kidnapping at that point.
Almost like a vengeance crime.
Yeah, she knew him. She definitely knew whoever did this.
Right.
And trusted that person. But the SA count that went against George, against his daughter, may have resulted in a pregnancy with the daughter. We're not entirely sure about that yet because it was.
But he was found not guilty of those charges.
He was found not guilty.
He was found not guilty.
Not guilty. Okay.
He was connected.
Yes. Yeah.
He was connected.
And at that point, it was very rigged in
Right.
LA.
And he was found not guilty. So they bugged his home.
Right.
With tape recorder to, and it wasn't just phone conversations, it was tape recorder in the room. And in this tape recording, they kind of got the clue that he might have had something to do with it, and he might have had something to do with the demise of his secretary. Now, I put up here, this is LAPD, the Elizabeth Short case. is 4711488, and it's still open. It's still unsolved. And you might say, well, gee, they were hot on the trail of Dr. George Hodel. What happened? Well, he suddenly got out of Dodge.
Yeah, he fled to, what was it, France?
Hawaii.
I think? Hawaii, yeah.
Yes, he wound up in Hawaii. Now, he'd been married several times, and when he got to Hawaii, he married again. And Hawaii was not a state at that time.
Right.
Hawaii was a territory at that time,
Right.
not becoming a state until 5960. And in fact, the last state that was admitted, hence the TV show Hawaii 5-0.
Yeah.
That's what 5-0 means, 50th state. So he was out there and he remarried, and his new wife was from the Philippines. And this was in 1950. He got out of L.A. in 1950 and spent a little time in Hawaii, and then went to the Philippines, set up a practice in the Philippines, and was there until he was an old man. And in 1990, that's 40 years later, he came back to the United States.
Yeah.
And died a short while after he came back to the United States, a few years after.
Yes. So
let me turn this around so we can see what we're talking about today and who we're talking about.
Elizabeth Short.
Elizabeth Short. Now, everybody calls her the Black Dahlia. She didn't call herself the Black Dahlia. This was added afterwards. And you have talked or conversed with the relative of Elizabeth Short. You've got some
Yes.
quotes that
I do. I got a quote. So, okay, so the history of the family. So, okay, I'm dating my director, my lovely girlfriend, Caroline. Her grandmother is second cousins with Elizabeth Short. And I actually saw Caroline's grandmother yesterday. And we talked about this.
Right.
We talked about it. I got texts between them. And they knew each other. Elizabeth Short and Caroline's grandmother knew each other. They were second cousins, and Caroline's family was very, very close with that side of the family. Now, being as old as the case is, Caroline's grandmother's a bit younger than Elizabeth Short. So at the time of the crime, her grandmother was 7. And so I got a quote. I'm going to read it. And this is straight from Caroline's grandmother. I was only 7 when she was murdered. My cousin and I remember being closed in a separate room when they talked. They hid the newspapers. I didn't know she had been murdered until my late teens. Her sister told me. Elizabeth Short's sister told her. Face to face. Basically, I learned everything from the book and the movie like everyone else. That side of the family all came from Maine. Many were still there. Down East Yankees, we called them. They never talked about their troubles. It was never discussed. I would not be any help on the show, probably the only one left that was alive back then. So it's very possible that Caroline's grandmother, is the last remaining relative that could have known Elizabeth Short. And it's a really unique perspective that we can take from this because we're taking a family perspective, which no other channel can do. So, well, how do you feel about that?
Well, first of all, I feel it's really important for you to get that information and put it into this because we're losing. As time passes, we lose connections to the past.
Yeah.
And when we do that, all kinds of things develop as far as hearsay and people think of things in different manners and they have no connection to the past. And here you have a direct connection to Elizabeth Short and maybe the last direct connection to Elizabeth Short. And it's interesting that you were able to talk with her yesterday, and that really is interesting. I find that amazing that
Yeah.
we are trying to preserve a little bit of history and give you the background behind this whole story. Now, uh, and I gave you my working notes today,
Sure.
and there are literally um, 30 books
Yep.
written on the Black Dahlia. There was a movie titled The Black Dahlia.
Have you seen it?
I have not,
Neither have I.
which was based loosely on the story. There's been all kinds of documentaries, which I have seen about the Black Dahlia.
I've seen all sorts. I watched 4 of them this week, plus readings on different websites, Wikipedia, all these other different, sites
Now,
to document this case.
The story about Dr. George Hodel, I kind of went dormant over so many years or so many decades. And interestingly enough, Dr. Hodel's son, a gentleman by the name of Steve Hodel, became a member of the LAPD
Yeah.
and became a detective
Yep.
and spent many years as a detective for the LAPD. And he knew the story
Oh, I'm sure.
because it was part of the family. But he didn't go to Hawaii, nor did he go to the Philippines. Dr. Hodel had many wives. Sometimes it was said that he had a couple at the same time. And as he moved on, he left these discarded families behind, which kind of gives you a clue about the personality of Dr. Hodel.
Yeah, he's not really a nice man as
No.
far as I'm putting together.
He had a storied past, and here's Steve Hodel. Now he's headed for retirement, and someone back in the late 1940s, early 50s, was taunting the LAPD. They were sending them information saying, "I'm the killer. I'm going to turn myself in." And they would cut out parts of newspaper and paste them onto a piece of paper and send it to the local newspaper. And
Didn't someone send in like Elizabeth Short's property, like an address book?
Yes.
Parts of clothing?
Yes.
There were many
so
different, yeah.
and we're assuming that those came from Elizabeth Short, but who knows?
Who knows?
They may have come from Elizabeth Short's residence,
Right.
and somebody sent them in.
Right.
And they could have been Elizabeth Short's, but they might have not had anything to do with their demise.
Yeah.
So Steve Hodel, and one of the things that was sent to the Los Angeles newspapers and was turned over to the LAPD was the Black Dahlia Avenger.
Yeah.
And Steve Hodel picked up on that and used that for the title of his first book. And he's written 4 books on the topic, on the Black Dahlias. And he absolutely is convinced that his father, Dr. George Hodel, is the one who's responsible for.
So with George, there's this big part that's really confusing. And I looked at the photographs. The son, what was the son's name again? Steve Hodel. Steve had found, I believe it was 2 photographs of a woman. I think she was wearing black, if I remember correctly. I viewed these photographs a few days ago. And they were in George Hodel's possession at the time of his death in 1999.
Right.
And the photographs resembled a woman, black hair with black clothing, I believe, and she was pale with lipstick, and they resembled Elizabeth Short. Have you seen those photographs?
I've not seen it, but I know that story.
Right. Okay.
And
so
some people think that it's Elizabeth Short. Some family members said they didn't think it was her.
Right.
It was taken from a distance.
Yeah.
And
A lot of experts with, I guess like the facial
facial recognition.
Yeah, basically, yeah. We're trying to no, that doesn't match, and stuff like that. And then with the handwriting with the letters, I had seen that Steve had hired investigators to review the handwritten letters and see if the handwriting matched, and some said yes and some said no. So it's a big.
Some said close.
I know, yeah. Some said close.
Right.
Maybe we should just throw it into ChatGPT and see what it says.
Well,
It might. ChatGPT doesn't lie. So
well, depends on who you talk to.
yeah, I know that's true. We discussed that the ChatGPT and AI's involvement in the Karen Reed case. But you can check that episode out. I can link the description. I can link the video in the description below. That was a very fascinating episode.
So here we are in the beginning of July in 2025, and this is still classified as an unsolved case.
Yes.
And many people think they know who did it. Steve Hodel thinks that his dad did it. Other people think that others were responsible. And as you can tell by the list of books and other media type of materials that have been distributed over the years, there's the case. And we're happy to present that to you today for your own knowledge. And we were lucky enough to get somebody who's directly connected to Elizabeth Schott and possibly the last person, might be the last person alive who knew her.
Yeah, personally, they hung out with that family. They went on vacation with that family, and they were very close as far as I had known. I talked to her grandmother yesterday, as I said, on the 4th of July.
Right.
But yeah, I guess that's the case. Maybe we can do another episode on the suspects if it's a hit, if this episode's a hit.
If anybody is interested in that, I would personally want to thank everybody for all of your comments, and we try to answer as many as possible.
Yeah.
And be critical. If you don't think what I'm portraying or what Seth is portraying, if you think you have another slant on it, please let us know, and we will answer your comments and thank you for all of those comments that have come in.
Rich is also an author of a historical novel, if you want to call it a historical novel, about Lizzie Borden. It takes the perspective of Lizzie, and it's a fascinating read. If you want to talk about that, the book.
Yeah, the book's doing pretty well, especially since we did the first two podcasts, and the first podcast was just unbelievable in numbers as far as the number of views that we had.
Almost 500,000.
Right. And we received a lot of comments on both of those. And maybe we'll do another one on Lizzie Borden. The anniversary's coming up next month. It would have been a month from yesterday. The 4th of August is when, in 1892, is when the what was known as the Fall River tragedy occurred. And maybe we would, maybe we could do something for that. You and I had talked about maybe doing something on the crime scene, the city, the neighborhood, and the crime scene, and maybe another one on on the two autopsies, one the day of the murders on August 4th, which was done, not as many people said, on the dining room tables. It was not. It was done in the dining room, but it was not done on the dining room table. And then a week, 10 days passed after that, the formal autopsy was done by the Bristol County Medical Examiner, and that was done at the Ladies' Comfort Station at Oak Grove Cemetery.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting story in itself.
The whole funeral service is a story, whole episode.
We could do an episode on the funeral because
it was a big deal.
It was a big deal. Yeah. It was a parade rather than a funeral procession.
Right.
People lined the streets of Fall River. The route was in the paper. This is the route of the funeral.
That's crazy. I can only hope to have a coverage like that when I go. But
and the interesting part is everybody got to the cemetery. Nobody got out of the carriages except Uncle John Morse. Interestingly enough,
Yeah.
the
Uncle
person,
John Morse is a weird dude. And
the person who I think is directly responsible, he was the only one to alight from the carriage and go to the gravesite and then get back in the carriage and the procession left. And the bodies were not buried. The bodies were taken to a holding area. This is in the summer of 1892, and they were put into a holding tomb for the autopsy, which occurred a week later.
yeah, and then the court case, because they had brought the skulls into the court case too.
Well, actually, the models of the skull.
Oh, the models. There we go. Yeah.
But that whole thing, part of the autopsy, is interesting as well.
Yeah.
So maybe we should do something like that to celebrate the.
That'd be fun. I'd have a good time.
Yeah.
It'd be really cool. So something I've talked about, and it's not really nothing's set up yet, but I'd love to do an episode. Costs a lot of money to do, but I'd love to do like a overnight investigation at the Lizzie Borden house. 2 months ago or so, I had paranormal investigator Matt Warner on the show, and that video did really well. It got 25 or so thousand views. It did very well. I'd love to do an overnight investigation, possibly a live episode from the Lizzie Borden's house. It'd be really cool to have you come by and walk me through the house and really just document it. Maybe not an overnight thing, maybe an overnight thing. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. And if I get a lot of traction on it, maybe I just will do it because it would be expensive to book the house for that long. But I'd have a great time. But yeah, do you have anything else?
That's about it for today.
Yeah.
And thank everybody for watching in, and look for our next podcast.
Absolutely. You can check us out on YouTube. You can also check out the official coffee of the Seth Rzuski Show, coffeebyseth.com. The link will be in the description below, as well as all of Rich's novels and books. You can follow me on Instagram at Seth Rzuski on Instagram. That'll also be linked below. And I'm very active on Twitter now. I'm trying to get back into it, so feel free to follow me there as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any other cases that we should go over, please feel free to comment down below. We always respond and read all the comments. Have a good night and good day. Sweet. So what'd you guys think? What do you guys think of it? I think the family ties really makes it personal. We talk about this case, well, now that I just filmed the episode in the house, Caroline and I are talking about it daily at this point. But I was watching this, and there's things that I want to go over that I didn't touch on, specifics about the case. I really want to dive into the suspects, because the suspects themselves could take an hour to talk about. Because, just like we kind of discussed the Lizzie case, but, the suspects themselves could be a whole separate episode, much like how the Lizzie one does. So depending on how well this episode does, maybe we'll do a part 2. I want all of your opinions in the comments. Good, bad, ugly, awesome, whatever it is. If you just want to say hi, just shoot me a message. It's daily. It's pretty much like the first thing I do is I wake up, check YouTube, go to bed, check YouTube. I'm eating a meal, I'm checking YouTube. I'm checking comments constantly. So I'm very much interacting with the community. I'm always talking to people and discussing ideas and theories and stuff like that. And if you have a really nice comment and I really like what you have to say, then, I've gone on here and discussed the specific comments and shouted people out, said thank you and stuff like that. And yeah, just trying to build a little bit of a community on Sunday mornings and go over these specific cases. That's the whole reason why I did the whole coffee thing, is because, I'm sitting down here, I'm drinking my, I think that's hazelnut. I'm sitting down, drinking my hazelnut, watching my show, good coffee. I'm so sick of the crappy Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, or just the name brands at the market stores and supermarkets and all that stuff. But this stuff's local. It's a small company, so their flavors really well designed, and they did a fantastic job with it. And I drink it daily. I have 2 or 3 cups daily. I don't recommend that unless you're a professional like myself, professional coffee drinker. But yeah, so I want to know what you thought about the case. I want to know what you thought about the family connection. Obviously, it's not really my family, but it might be at one point if Caroline and I ever decide to get married. But that's a whole separate topic for a whole separate time. So let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts on the case. And really, honestly, the biggest thing I want to know about is one, I want to know what flavor you drink. And two, I want to know what you think about the live episode at the Lizzie Borden house. I think that video would do numbers, and I think that video would do awesome. But that would be like a $2,000 to $3,000 expense. I'd have to eat. But you know what? If I have another video do really well, then I'll just reinvest everything and I'll make that video go crazy. I'd love to have guests on. So like my brother, my brother is a rapper, a musician at heart, and his name's Dying Star. And I'd love to have him like, you know, do some work with the Lizzie house and like, you know, talk to me about it. I'd love to have some paranormal investigators on, do a podcast or two there, do a live watch party. You know, really just like film all sorts of content in the Lizzie house. I think that would be so awesome, you know? Maybe if I can get in touch with some of the Lizzie family, do a podcast with the Lizzie family. I know some of them were watching my content at one point. I got in contact with them. But how cool would that be if I was able to get in contact and like do a podcast in the house with the descendants of the family themselves? I think that would be an awesome perspective. And you know, for these cases, we are in the perfect location. Massachusetts has so much history around it, being one of the oldest states, if not the oldest state. But it's truly awesome that, you know, we're here. I mean, the weather's not too good like we were talking about earlier, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it, you know? But I like this idea of the watch parties. It's pretty cool. I know the quality's not like top tier, but my computer's running a lot. 5 different programs, streaming softwares, and stuff like that. So, you know, all these videos will be back for playback. You can check it out as many times as you want. Watch it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. I am definitely, at this point, I've decided that I'm definitely going to do a coffee hour. And let me know what you thought about the outside. Last time I did the coffee hour in my dining room at my table with the artwork in the back, and it was a beautiful Victorian era vibe to it. This is kind of a more modern, relaxed type of thing. And if I was going to film some cigar nights, this is where it would be. A very similar setup like this, me just sitting here smoking, maybe with a friend of mine. I have a couch on the other side over here, same chairs and stuff like that, couch. So I thought about doing something like that and really just sitting there talking about whatever it be, state of the world. But yeah, so let me know thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, and let me know what coffee you drink. And coffeebyseth.com. Got the best coffee. I drink it daily. I can't stand Starbucks now, and Starbucks was always said to be like the best, but no. It's okay consumer quality, but if you want quality, like good quality coffee, this is where it's at. I just ordered a bag of Peru. Can't wait to give that a taste. And my coffee's average priced. You know, it's not overpriced. It's not underpriced. It's right there. It's going to give you the experience of sitting down, watching the show. I'm really trying to create an experience on Sunday mornings and, you know, make it like an educational journey type of thing. So get at me with the cases that you want to me to cover. Rich and I were discussing H.H. Holmes. That is a fascinating case. That'd probably be a 2-episode part as well. This might be a 2-episode part plus a coffee hour. So we got a lot more to talk about with Elizabeth Short. Rest in peace. And I think that's going to be it for today. Enjoy your weekend. Happy 4th of July. And thanks for tuning in. And check out all my other videos too. They'll all be on my channel. Alrighty? Instagram, Twitter, Seth Rzuski. You can find me there. Twitter, I'm posting every few hours. So if you want to get in contact with me, comment on one of my Twitter tweets. I'm always checking that. So I will get in touch with you. Same with Instagram. Shoot me a DM. All that stuff. Alrighty? Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you. Have a good day.